Now that we've defined polynomials, we'll look at different operations. And the first thing we'll look at is addition. Here we see two polynomials in parentheses. And when we're dealing with just addition, the order that we add things in doesn't matter, which means these parentheses are pointless. And we can just add like terms. So we'll start with the highest exponent, which is a 3. And we have two terms. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. So we just write this as x cubed. The next one is an x squared. And I have 9 minus 8, which is 1. So plus x squared. The next thing is just an x. We only have one of those. So plus 7x. And then finally, we'll deal with the constants. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. So now we have our final answer. When looking at subtraction, order is now important. In particular, the first parenthesis doesn't matter since that number will not change. However, we do have to distribute the negative sign through the second parenthesis. So this is now negative 4x cubed plus 8x squared minus 4. Once again, we'll start with x cubed. We have negative 3 minus 4, which is negative 7. Moving to x squared, 9 plus 8 is 17x squared. There's still only one x, which is 7x. And then finally we move to the constants. Negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12. So we have the solution. We'll now look at multiplying. So when we multiply, the idea is we need to multiply everything in the first parentheses times everything in the second. So we start with x times 8x squared, which would be 8x cubed. Next, we would have x times x, which is x squared. We then have x times negative 5, which is negative 5x. So now we've multiplied everything in the second parentheses by the first term in the first parentheses. So we'll move on to the 3. 3 times 8x squared is plus 24x squared. 3 times x is plus 3x. And then finally, 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So from here we can just combine like terms. We have an 8x cubed, there's an x squared and a 24x squared, which gives us 25x squared. There's a negative 5x and a plus 3, which gives us negative 2x, and then a minus 15. Another version of this is FOIL. So with FOIL, this happens whenever we're multiplying two binomials. And it stands for first, so we multiply our first two terms. AX times CX. The O stands for outer, so we multiply the outside two terms, which would be a dx. The I is inner, the inner two terms, b times cx. And then the L is for the last two terms, bd. And then we can simplify from here. So for example, here if I multiply the first two terms, 3x times negative 5x would be negative 15x squared. The outside two terms, 3x times negative 7 is negative 21x. the inside two terms. 3 times negative 5x is negative 15x. And then the last two terms, 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. We can combine these two middle terms. Negative 21 minus 15 is negative 36. The next one, the first two terms, x times x is x squared. The outside two, x times negative 8 is negative 8x. The inside two, 8 times x is 8x. And the last two, 8 times negative 8 is negative 64. We can see that negative 8x plus 8x is going to cancel, so we're left with just x squared minus 64. One more example. Here, when we square, this is x plus 5 times itself. So my first two terms, x times x is x squared. Outside 2, x times 5 is 5x. Inside 2, 5 times x is 5x. And the last two, 5 times 5 is 25. This gives us x squared plus 10x plus 25.